we are utilizing AI within our applications, within our systems. And I think it becomes really important to have that conversation on how we want to define the boundaries for our employees to be able to effectively use these kind of tools.
From Aderant, this is Studio A, the podcast that helps legal professionals like you stay on top of trends and solutions that keep your law firm thriving. Welcome to Studio A, powered by Aderant, your podcast for insightful conversations shaping legal tech. I'm your host, Will Ayers. With the advancement of technology, cybersecurity is a key priority for every organization. In this episode, we will explore the many elements of cybersecurity, and we have a special guest to help lead the conversation. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, Will. Pleasure to be here. I am Niveta Chowdhry, and I am the Vice President of Business Operations and Cybersecurity here at Aderant. I've been here for over 2 years now, and my main areas of responsibility at Aderant are business systems, IT, and of course, cybersecurity. So really happy to be here today.
So let's jump right in. Cybersecurity incidents keep organizations up at night. I'm pretty sure that you are very busy in the role that you're in at Aderant. And there are so many layers to the conversation around cybersecurity. As an industry leader in cybersecurity, what are some things that keep you up at night as a leader in such a huge role?
For me, the social engineering attacks have significantly evolved and have become really sophisticated over the past year. And this is largely due to the advancements in artificial intelligence. So I was just talking to my colleagues yesterday as well that so the traditional indicators that the employees were trained on, like, to look for in phishing emails, such as like grammatical errors or spelling mistakes, that's no longer reliable anymore. And also the newer technologies, for instance, like the deepfake technology, which is now readily available and often for free, it poses a significant threat as well. And this is particularly concerning in our global hybrid work environment, where we are heavily relying on the virtual means of communication. So really, I think that's what is keeping me up at night, that, it just takes one moment of weakness of any person, or maybe they're busy, they're running errands, they just want to quickly check an email, they click on something, we're basically like, in the weeds of things. So I think for us to tackle these evolving threats, which have become so sophisticated, we need to keep up with the technologies that are coming in. We need to keep everyone and ourselves informed as well. So I guess like staying ahead means using the latest tech, ongoing education, keeping a close eye on the things that are happening around us, and being proactive so that we can better protect ourselves and our organizations.
Now, you mentioned better protecting the organization. Let's jump right into a recent incident that occurred this year, because I'm very big on providing our listeners with real world examples that they can kind of take away just to make the conversation more tangible. So let's jump into that conversation and shift gears a little bit. Earlier this year, there was a CrowdStrike outage. I remember actually getting up that morning, and many of the apps that I use, they were not working. And it impacted so many people around the world individually, but it also impacted a lot of organizations as well. Can you walk us through what occurred during that outage and the ways that it impacted Aderant?
I also clearly remember that morning. And I remember it was Friday, it was July 19th. And I woke up a little early and I saw that my team's messages were blowing up. And that's when it dawned upon me that, okay, something is terribly wrong. Like something is definitely up. Like, we need to investigate what's going on. So after I talked to my teams in the morning who had been up since 1 a.m. Eastern time, and I found out that there is good news and there is bad news for Aderant. So the good news was that it wasn't a security breach. It was in fact like something that went down, and it wasn't just us that was affected. It was many companies overall, like globally, that were affected by it. So that was good news for Aderant. But the bad news was also that we have a lot of Windows machines, and we had been impacted, and almost all of our Windows machines, which had the CrowdStrike agent running, were down, which included like some of the domain controllers, included some member servers, it included workstations, some production client environments. We were impacted heavily by it. So these crashes essentially like caused a stop error within the Windows operating system, leading to a widespread disruptions, as you might have experienced yourself as well. So our immediate response was, okay, now we know the scope of what has happened. How do we prioritize it? And how do we keep the communication open with our clients and the internal stakeholders as well? So we prioritize that, okay, these are the critical environments that need to be up and running now so that we can start dealing with the non-critical environments eventually. So we created a war room, and all the team's spokespersons updated the status periodically in that war room. And they were bringing up issues such as okay, this is a critical thing that we need resources on, and this is where we need attention. We need more people that can work on this. So the good thing was that everybody came together to help each other, and everyone was working towards the same goal with a priority list in front of them. And the various SWAT teams were working separately as well to tackle the critical production environments in their areas. So despite the security outage, our backup and recovery capabilities allowed us to restore all the production environments within 24 hours. And I think that was a very big achievement for Aderant. Plus, the communication was one piece that we really paid attention to. We didn't want to have our clients in the dark about what's going on. So there were constant status updates that we were providing to clients as our internal employees as well. So I think overall, even though we were heavily impacted, we came out of it. And there were many lessons also that were learned, which is also interesting to talk about.
I think that's a very interesting incident because although Aderant kind of passed the test themselves as an organization, you mentioned that there are many vendors that were impacted. And I know that you speak with other leaders in similar roles in other organizations all the time. What do you think is the biggest lesson learned from that outage from an industry perspective?
There are a couple of lessons, honestly, to be learned by this. But one thing that I think a lot of cybersecurity leaders realized that it just highlighted the dangers of monocultures. That is relying too heavily on a single system or a vendor or a provider that can create significant issues when it goes down. And I think it was a stark reminder that diversity in our technological ecosystems is crucial for resilience. The other thing that got really, really highlighted was that disaster recovery and backups, they're very important. And having a robust disaster recovery plan and reliable backups is absolutely crucial for swift recovery, such as this incident, right? It's not just about having these plans in place, but ensuring that they are effective and up to date. And we should have regular DR drills that are actual practical real life scenarios so that when such things happen, everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing and how they need to be operating. So I think that is a very, very crucial thing that came out of it. This incident reminded us that, hey, we need to prepare for the future as well, for the next time. When we are living in this dynamic world where there are so many, vendors we rely upon, it's a virtual world that we're in. And we should just know that incidents will happen. They're inevitable. And we must prepare accordingly to minimize disruption. It's all about building resilience and continually improving our cybersecurity practices. So I think those are the two biggest things that I think people really, really started focusing on after this incident specifically.
Now, you mentioned continuing to build upon those cybersecurity practices. I think the general public typically, when they think cybersecurity, they think cyber attacks, et cetera. Even employees at an organization, they may not understand all of the things that are going on the back end that you and your team are doing to protect the organization from a privacy standpoint and a data standpoint as well. What's one aspect of cybersecurity that our listeners may not be familiar with?
The thing that comes to my mind, I guess, is zero trust. So zero trust framework, unlike like the traditional security models that assume that everything inside your organization, everything inside your network is trustworthy, zero trust operates on a different principle, which is never trust, always verify. And this is in no way a new concept. It's been going around, but it has been gaining momentum recently. So not many people may be familiar with it because this is very like a thing that, the security professionals are talking about and implementing within their organizations. So essentially like a zero trust, what it means is that no user or device is trusted by default. And even if they are inside your network, you need to verify. We're actually on that journey ourselves as well within Aderant. Like we are implementing zero trust methodology within our ecosystem. And I think this whole project, this whole approach, it will ensure that, we are even more robust on the security side of things because even though we're very well equipped by the external threats, but internal threats are also something that we should be aware of. So zero trust is something that I think is gaining momentum and not many people might be familiar with that concept for now.
In the legal industry, cybersecurity is a huge topic, big priority for law firms and even legal tech companies as well. But I know those threats are always evolving. Just like you mentioned earlier, there are new types of technology, and every time a new type of technology, for instance, AI rolls out, there's a new type of incident or threat to be aware of. But what are some common types of incidents or threats that legal tech providers and law firms should be aware of?
Law firms are prime targets for cyber criminals, specifically because of the vast amount of sensitive and confidential data that they deal with or handle, right? And as we were just discussing, cybercrime is on rise. It's partly due to the access to various tools that even the non-seasoned criminals have access to now and they can use. And AI itself is also helping these criminals develop more sophisticated attacks. In my opinion, if I were to say, I guess the most common threats to law firms are the threats that are common in general, but specifically to law firms, I would say phishing attacks is number one. Social engineering attacks are on the rise, and they go hand in hand with the credential thefts as well. The second one I would say is ransomware. It's on the rise. It's not only very common, but it is also one of the most disastrous ones to the organizations. So everyone should be prepared to protect themselves against ransomware for sure. And I guess the last one I would say is the financial and billing frauds, which are pretty common as well, not just for the legal industry in general, but yeah, I would say that these are the three that are the biggest ones. And just to say that, the frequency, the size and the scope of these are increasing within law firms. And most cyber criminals, as you might have heard about, is that before it were lone wolves, just, trying to do something cool or, just hacking for fun. But now the cyber criminal network is more organized and they're more skilled, they're faster, they have better access to technology. So it's not just the AmLaw 200 law firms or prestigious law firms that are targeted. Even the small law offices are also a target these days.
Now, you mentioned big law firms and small law firms as well are open to these types of attacks. What can these organizations do to safeguard against these type of cybersecurity incidents?
Well, the principles remain the same, right? And I like to think of it in two main buckets when I think about safeguarding the organization. And it is prevention and there is damage control. So prevention is all about stopping something from happening before it happens, right? This includes implementing robust governance, monitoring, alerting systems, firewalls, making sure your employees are trained and educated, against social engineering attacks. Multi-factor authentication is super important, regular patching of your systems, and of course, like network segmentation. And essentially, like prevention is the best cure, in my opinion. Like we need to really, really invest in all of these things that I just mentioned just to prevent these incidents from happening in the first place. And then comes the damage control. And damage control comes into play if a breach does occur, unfortunately. And that for me involves two phases as well. One is containment and then is recovery, right? So firstly, I think it is crucial that whenever something like this happens, we're able to stop it from spreading. So containment becomes very important. It really heavily relies on how well your systems are segmented apart from each other or containerized. Secondly, like recovery focuses on how immutable your backups are and how your disaster preparedness is robust enough so that you can recover from these incidents quickly as possible. And by focusing on both prevention as well as damage control, organizations can really create a comprehensive cybersecurity strategy which can protect against these attacks.
Given the potential risk associated with inputting sensitive information into AI systems, what measures can organizations take to protect confidential data? Because you mentioned earlier that AI is on the rise. It's more accessible to more people now, and it's continuing to evolve as the days go by. So what are some things or some measures that organizations can take to protect confidential data when they're using AI systems such as Microsoft Copilot or ChatGPT?
Even at Aderant, we are big advocates of using new technology, and we are utilizing AI within our applications, within our systems. And I think it becomes really important to have that conversation on how we want to define the boundaries for our employees to be able to effectively use these kind of tools. So I think like from how we approached, and I can talk about that, is that firstly, it is crucial to establish a clear AI policy that defines the boundaries I was talking about for using the AI within the organization. This policy should be communicated effectively to all employees to ensure compliance. Secondly, I think the organizations should provide some security-approved, security-vetted AI tools for the employees to use based on the established policy. And while it may be acceptable to use the company data with these trusted tools, which we also allow to some extent, it is imperative, I think, to not have highly sensitive information such as the PII or any other information that you deem to be highly sensitive to be put in the AI tools, as this technology is still evolving. So regardless of the perceived trustworthiness, I think a little bit of caution is still required. Additionally, it is essential to thoroughly review the data policies of AI tool vendors as well. Because you will notice that every single vendor or any application that you use these days, everyone is offering some kind of an AI tool within that application as well. So it's very important for the organizations to verify whether these vendors store prompts for training their LLMs or if there is an option to opt out of that service. So looking at their policies, looking at the settings is also very important. Plus, having some kind of governance over what AI tools are the applications bringing in with and how people are using it, doing some kind of use case studies on different things and having the security department keeping a close eye on the various things that are being used within the organization is also, I think, very important. Furthermore to this is that the organizations must implement robust data protection measures such as encryption, access control, safeguarding sensitive information, and regular audit and assessments, I guess, is what I'm saying, for AI tools and their uses is required.
Now, that's the perfect alley-oop, I would say, to my next question. There is an audit that's known across the industry that essentially checks the systems of different organizations, and it's called SOC 2. For our audience, and our listeners that may not be familiar with what that is, can you provide us with an overview of what SOC 2 is and the role that it plays in bolstering cybersecurity for an organization?
SOC 2 basically is a cybersecurity compliance framework, and it was developed by AICPA. There's type 1 and then there is type 2, but both of them are based on the 5 key trust service principles, that is security, availability, processing, integrity, and confidentiality, and the last one is privacy. And as I mentioned, there are 2 types of SOC. One is type 1 and one is type 2. And the type 2 is the one that is the most widely used, even within the legal industry as well. And that is the one that assesses the operating effectiveness of your organization over a period of time. And usually that period of time could be from 3 months to 12 months. And the type 1 is a little bit different, and that relies on the same principles, but it looks at your controls at a specific point of time. So it's not a continual audit that happens. And the SOC reports essentially are a stamp, and that gives your clients confidence that your organization meets the basic security and compliance requirements and is consistently following them. In the legal industry, where I guess like trust and confidentiality is very important because of the kind of clients you deal with, the kind of data that you deal with. So having a SOC 2 type 2 certification can significantly enhance a firm's reputation. And also like for SaaS vendors that the legal firms are using, it's also important for the vendors to also demonstrate a commitment to protecting client data, which is critical for maintaining client trust and avoiding potential legal and financial repercussions from data breaches. So at Aderant as well, like we're on our SOC 2 type 2 journey as well. And I think it's really important that even if like, you have the controls in place, having an external party verify those and tell your clients that, yes, you are doing your part correctly, I think builds confidence and is an important thing to have.
Now, Cybersecurity Month just passed and wrapped up. Can you talk about some of the things that you and your team did internally at Aderant to drive education around cybersecurity?
At Aderant, we have adopted a comprehensive approach to cybersecurity education across the company. The Cybersecurity Month was a great opportunity for us to advance some of the things that we wanted to talk about. And one thing that is a problem that a lot of organizations, and it's a known fact, is that whenever the mandatory trainings are sent out to the staff that, hey, you need to do this, that includes so many things, and people are busy, people are getting stuff out. And sometimes it's perceived as that I don't have time for this, let's just get over with it. We really wanted to make it fun in a way that maybe, create some games and trivia sessions, and how to engage is what was the question in our head, that, okay, how do we make this interesting for people to actually attend and to actually grasp the information that we're providing to them? So what we did was we had the Cybersecurity Month, and we had numerous sessions throughout the month, which people attended, but we made it fun in a way that we had some trivia questions, we had some games that people could engage in, and then we also had some prize to give out to the winners. And overall, I think it was a very successful month where people really gave great feedback that these kind of sessions is what is engaging them, and they actually learned some stuff and took that back home. And some of them even talked to their family and friends about how interesting it was, and they educated their family in return. So that is the kind of culture that we need to build around cybersecurity. Obviously, organizations do need to do mandatory training sessions as well, so then everyone is up to date, and it's also a compliance requirement. In addition to all of those things, I think it's also important to release regular newsletters about anything that is new, that is happening or being observed as trending in the cybersecurity world, to keep everyone up to date. The other thing that is very fruitful is the simulated social engineering attacks that we do within our organization, which is phishing, and sometimes we can also invest in phishing as well. Have the phishing tests, but don't leave it at that. Once you have identified a pattern, there may be certain individuals who are regular offenders. So do targeted phishing training for those employees as well. And then eventually, like, I think it's also important to see the progress around, like, your efforts, like, has your organization matured? So maybe in the town halls, it's a good idea to even showcase that, okay, maybe our social engineering index was at 50% and now it is at 70%. People have stopped clicking on phishing emails. So seeing that kind of progress also motivates people to own that. And because every single individual plays a part in creating a culture.
Before we conclude, you've shared a ton of knowledge to not only drive education for people like myself, our listeners, but for just organizations overall. And I know that you're big on kind of like empowering individuals or kind of like providing them with the tools to be on the lookout for potential cybersecurity threats. What is something that our audience, something that I can do right now to better prepare ourselves for these type of evolving cybersecurity threats? Because technology is continuing to advance. It's not going to slow up anytime soon. So what's something that we can do today to be prepared?
I'm going to go back to where I started. And I think human error remains one of the weakest links in cybersecurity. And it is a fact that is also well known, unfortunately, to the cyber criminals, right? And therefore, having a continual employee education and training is definitely necessary, as I just talked about, to avoid these kind of issues. But what we really need is to build a culture and a mindset. Culture is not a top-down thing that can be pushed upon people. I feel like it is more than that. It is a manifestation of many minds working together towards the same goal. So I guess like each individual must play a part in helping build that culture. Keeping yourself up to date about security issues and evolving threats, taking the training seriously is something that everyone should start doing. And if you are in doubt, like, you're working and you're in doubt that, okay, this sounds too good to be true, or, if it is raising some kind of alarm bells in your head, raise it to the professionals, talk to your security team and verify certain things. And I think, again, like we can even incorporate the zero trust principle in this, that never trust, always verify. If we can just keep that in our head, that everything is evolving so fast, no one knows, what is the next big thing that's going to, affect different organizations or even you as an individual on your personal life too, because you have your data and your personal life that you're dealing with. So just having that cultural mindset change to just be aware of your surroundings is what is required and everybody can play a part in.
That was the perfect segue to conclude this episode. Niveta, thank you so much for stopping by Studio A. This is your first time on the show, but we hope it won't be your last. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Will. I look forward to next time.
Thanks for listening to Studio A. For more from this episode, visit Aderant.com. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss a beat, and we'll see you next time in Studio A.